Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SafeHouse. I'm Jeff Edwards, co founder of SafeHouse Initiative and your host for today's podcast. Enjoy. This episode, we get personal. Have you ever thought about what happens if you get hacked? What do? How do you respond? Fortunately, our guest today has tremendously valuable and practical advice for us. My dear friend of nearly 4 decades, Alan Jen, is our guest today and my fellow co founder of the SafeHouse Initiative. He is executive producer of this very podcast, The SafeHouse. Alan recently authored a three-part series of what do you do if you get hacked, which is the basis for our conversation today. Alan, Jen, welcome to the Safe House.
Good to be here, Jeff.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's all the time you've been the executive producer, you've never been a guest on the show.
Yeah, long-time listener.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. All right. Let's take a couple minutes, like every other guest. Let's introduce yourself and get acquainted with the audience and kind of share some highlights of your journey to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Like many of our guests, I didn't really have a master plan. It just started pretty much with simple frustration in the industry. So early in my career, starting in the early 80s, I was deep in infrastructure. I started in IT audit and security, servers, storage, networks, the whole stack. And the mindset back then was always the same, even as today. If something breaks, you restore it. And that was the gold standard backup and recovery. Uh, Corporations were willing to live with 4 to 7 day recovery time. It was the norm. It was the standard. But what I kept seeing over and over again, like you, was that recovery just didn't match the reality. Systems would go down, and even if you could restore them, the business was still impacted. Sometimes hours, days, and even weeks. And no one really talked about that gap. They just accepted it. As businesses became more digital, the problem just got worse. It wasn't IT anymore. If an application went down, revenue stopped. Customers disappeared, operations halted, but the underlying approach had not changed. It was still built around recovering after the fact, after the incident. And that's really what set me on this path. I started asking a different question. Why are we designing systems to come back instead of designing them to stay running?
Hmm.
That led us to the work we're doing at Zero Down, focusing on keeping applications live through failure, not just restoring them afterward. And over time, that evolved into a broader realization that this just is not technical, it's a business risk issue. And that's where the concepts like the failure gap came from. And more recently, with the Safe House Initiative and this podcast, it's been about taking everything we've learned and making it accessible, because this problem isn't just impacting large enterprises anymore. It's hitting everyone, just like the article that we wrote. So if I had to sum it up, my journey really hasn't been about moving from recovery to continuity. It's been about helping others understand why this shift matters.
So, what motivated you to write the You've Been Hacked series?
Oh, interesting. Unlike most of our podcasts, this didn't start as a content idea where we're normally going, what do we want to speak about? What's relevant? This started with people calling me because they were impacted or affected by a personal breach or ransomware attack and simply just didn't know what to do. This has been going on for years. These are my friends, their family, they're my neighbors. And around COVID, maybe one or two people a year would reach out. But over the last 18 months, it's changed. It's turned into roughly a dozen calls, different situations, yet same question every time. Help, what do I do now? Sometimes it's, I have just seen the skull and crossbones on my screen and I am threatened. I'm in a panic mode.
So civilians, people that aren't familiar with cybersecurity, basically.
Exactly. As you said, civilians. So people that are not in our business or around people in our business, just going back to their normal lives, and they get that skull and crossbones email, as I said earlier. It says you've been hacked, and unless you pay, we will release this uncompromising data on you and to all of your contacts. And when something like that happens for civilians, there's no playbook. There's no incident response team to call. There's no checklist of what happens during a disaster. It's just stress, uncertainty, guesswork, and it's all fueled by panic. What really pushed this project forward was when one of our Safe House Initiative co-founders called me. He was on a business trip traveling, and his business had been hit by a ransomware attack. So even though he's in our business and he's around it, he really had no idea what to do. And frankly, this isn't surprising to any of us. And just to take a quick step back because this is relevant, And this is also my shameless plug for the SafeHouse Initiative. The SafeHouse Initiative is a nonprofit organization that we started as a free solution and vendor agnostic resource for small and medium-sized businesses who
Mm.
are already overwhelmed just with running a daily business. They don't have an IT staff, they don't have a security team, and they don't have a large, massive budget when they get hit. So we wanted to take our expertise, curate it, and make it available to anybody. So our goal was to make small, medium-sized businesses cocktail conversant with their insurance broker, their managed service provider, just being able to have a conversation around the topic and know what they're talking about. So there's no products, no sales motions, just podcasts with experts, blogs and articles on relevant topics. We're covering a lot about AI right now. And we don't track anyone on the site. We don't ask you for your email address, which means you're not going to get spam calls or emails from us. It's just pure education. It's a safe place. That's why we call it the Safe House. It's available to anyone. It's free. And whether you're a small business owner or just someone trying to protect your own family, you can go there to learn. You hear the buzzwords, but you don't know what it means. So it's built by over 100 contributors, security
Mm.
professionals, practitioners, people who do this every day for large corporations and governments, but they just don't do it for consumers.
Mm.
So we all saw this gap. When something goes wrong, we realize people don't know what to do, and so this is our way of fixing that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you started for out as the Safe House Initiative to help small mid-sized businesses, but it seems like you're evolving maybe more to embrace the individual consumers. Is that correct?
It didn't start that way, but we realized just as with enterprises, their supply chain is made up of small, medium-sized businesses. So
Yeah.
when the small, medium-sized business is impacted, it impacts the enterprise and the governments. And what makes up these small, medium-sized businesses? It's consumers, it's
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah, great. That's it was fascinating, and what really brought it home. It sounds like that when the it got personal with one of your own, basically in your community was hit. So all of a sudden things shift.
It did, and because when that co-founder called, it was no longer theory. It wasn't us reading topical articles. It was really
Yeah.
about his own family who had been impacted. And as I said, worse, he was away on a business trip in another time zone. We've all experienced this ourselves, and rightfully so. Everybody in his family was in the red zone. And after walking him through what we needed to have done immediately, his reaction was simple. It was like, "Hey, can you write this down and email me all of these steps because I really can't think clearly right now."
So you encourage them to capture it real time, basically.
Yes, exactly. And what I basically had over the years was a series of steps, almost like recipe cards, that I was walking some of my friends through and I was walking him through it. And then I would take that and I would make an email template and I would mail it to my friends after we talked about it. And so this turned from my email template into a blog. We shared it on our monthly co-chair call, and our friend basically walked everybody through how awful it was and how traumatic it was. And following that, we took it to our contributors that same week, and then we decided to have it peer reviewed by cybersecurity professionals from the initiative, and that's what turned it into a three-part series.
Yeah, interesting. So let me ask you a question. Why is this such a blind spot for individuals?
Well, because it's not headline news. It's
Hmm.
not newsworthy. There's no shock and awe. There's not, somebody in the news, like a celebrity that got hit by it.
Hmm.
So the average consumer has really no awareness until this happens to them, and they're isolated. So realistically, we live in a climate where businesses believe it's never going to happen to them. So why shouldn't consumers feel the same way? And the scale is massive. In the US alone, the reported consumer cyber losses are over 12.5 billion a year. This is through the FBI. And
Hmm.
that's only what gets reported. Globally, if you factor the unreported incidents in and the downstream impact, and you look at consumer cyber crime, Cybersecurity Ventures estimates this to be a 40 to 60 billion dollar annual hit.
Hmm.
Now, if we put that into context, the total global cyber crime. This is with enterprises, small, medium-sized businesses, is $10 trillion annually. And we've seen these numbers as we've talked to our own insurance carrier partners. It's big, and it all trickles down to the consumers.
Yeah, these are big numbers, but when it hits you, it becomes very real.
Yeah, and so exactly. Even I was affected by both the Equifax breach and the
Uh-huh.
AT&T breach, and this is
Mhm.
really when I started to put my note cards together. And I made phone calls to other security experts and said, "What are you doing about the Equifax breach?" So the September 2017 Equifax breach exposed 147 million Americans. This was their social security numbers with birth dates, addresses, and this is what's mind-boggling. It occurred in May of 2017, but AT&T didn't discover it until July. So that was 3 months
Mhm.
of bad actors harvesting your data, identity level data. You can't reset that once it's out there in the wild.
Now you mentioned something about the AT&T issue.
Yeah, this one hurts because, as you know, I worked at AT&T, but there was about
Yeah.
109 million accounts impacted over three breaches from 2019 to 2023 and 2024. There was no message content. It was just metadata.
Hmm.
And metadata, as you know, it's who you're talking to, it's when you're active, it's how you communicate. So from that, a bad actor can map someone's life, their family, their work, more importantly, their patterns. And that's where social engineering comes from.
Hmm.
Now, you're not guessing anymore. You know who to impersonate. You know when to reach out. You know what their normal looks like. So instead of a random phishing email, it looks like it's coming to you from someone you trust.
Hmm.
And it comes to you when you're kind of expecting it. So this is why it works. It's no longer just hacking in the technical sense. It's manipulation backed by real data and real information.
Yeah, so in terms of social engineering, we all watch movies and you can see where people are pretending to be something that's authorized or whatever, and they get access to facilities, they get access into the data center or whatever. And I always think back to the old joke, 20 odd years ago that I just got a note from the Prince of Nairobi or whatever, someplace in Ambia, and you have $30 million waiting for you. They need to transfer, it's something like that. Is that kind of the what you're talking about, social engineering?
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I actually have a letter from the Prince of Nairobi, so I'm wondering where my check is, but I did respond.
So what do people get wrong when it happens?
Well, first they panic and they move too fast, which results in mistakes. So often they will start clicking on links in the email that they should ignore, or they'll call the number that's in the email. That's happened to several of the people who've called me. So the first rule is simple. Just slow down, take 3 deep breaths, and then let's do the next right thing.
And that one next thing is,
It's your email.
hmm,
But let's back up into the social engineering question that you had, because that's where it starts in your email.
hmm,
So social engineering, we've all heard the term, but not everyone really understands what it is. It's the simplest form of a cyber attack, and it's usually the most effective. So at its core, it's not really about hacking your system like they do in the movies. It's about influencing people. So an attacker doesn't really try to punch through your firewall. They try to get you to open the door for them. And they do that by targeting that normal behavior I was discussing in the AT&T hack.
mhm.
Things that you trust, they create some urgency, they create some curiosity, potentially even fear by threat. So you'll see this in emails that look legitimate. They may be coming from your bank, your boss. Lately, it's HR, a vendor you work with. The
Hmm.
message creates just enough pressure to get you to act quickly. So click this link, approve this payment, reset your password, and that's when you're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking about security, you're thinking about doing your job. And that's the whole point of social engineering. So it works because it fits on how people operate, it's their behavior. We trust familiar names. We respond to urgency from your boss. We don't want to be that person who slows things down or misses something that's important. So instead of attacking by technology, it bypasses it completely by going straight through the human behavior level. And
Mm.
so what we're going to do is we're going to try to get you to defend against that. And we're not just protecting the systems, we're trying to protect your behavior. And that's partially how this blog turned into become this three-part article. If someone does control your email, back to the question of email, they control everything. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to change your password. And we always suggest using a password manager to create long passwords with, characters in it, 24
So
to 36 or 48 characters, something that you can't remember or somebody else can't remember.
yeah, so dig into the password manager just for a second, just a little bit more, because I've heard the term. I know a lot of people may not know about it.
Sure. Even I'd heard the term of password managers, back in the 80s and 90s. And um, I was using one while I was in corporate America. And then when I got out of corporate America, I no longer used one. But a password manager, think of it as an electronic vault that you store on your phone or on your laptop or on your iPad. It does have security encryption that's uses public and private key, so that your private key is not out there, and then it'll sync all of your devices. Many people don't use it because they think it's too complex. So it's one of those tools, and that's what it is. It's a tool that until you actually try it or pick it up, your perception of it is it's too complex.
Yeah.
But if you happen to have the average amount of logins, which is over 100, and I've met people who have 300 logins to services, and you think about it, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., then your banks. There's a lot of passwords you have to have. So generally, consumers reuse the same password. A password manager allows you not only to have the longest password that the site will take, but it also, if you get an alert that there's a breach and you need to change your password, you can do it in less than a minute.
Hmm.
Um, and every year I change all of my passwords, and it takes me less than 30 minutes to change all my passwords for all my accounts. And it's a tool. Just think of it as a tool.
Hmm. Okay.
And then enable MFA, multi-factor authentication.
Okay.
For many
Now,
people,
now, excuse me for a second. So the MFA is like when I go to my bank and I log in and it says, wait a second, I'm going to send you another code to my phone or something like that. Is that MFA basically?
that's MFA, exactly.
Okay.
That's multi-factor authentication. And
Okay.
what's happened is a lot of people go, well, I don't want to use it because then I've got to go look at my phone and take the text, and I've got to go punch the number in.
Hmm.
What they don't realize is, in many systems, if you're logged into a site on your laptop, and you get that MFA code, you don't have to necessarily punch it in. You can just put your cursor over there, click on it, and it'll insert the code all by itself.
Hmm.
But today, multi-factor authentication is now embracing passkeys, and that passkey is like a physical device. It's
Hmm.
attached to your phone or it's attached to your laptop, and it's a physical device that a hacker does not have access to because they're not sitting at your desk. And that passkey can pass through your multi-factor authentication. So it's getting simpler and better all the time, as we expect technology to do.
Hmm.
And then make sure you log out of all of your sessions, because your laptop is the one that you're on is affected. So we always use the metaphor, it's got the skull and crossbones on it. So you want to be able to go and log out. If like many people that we know, they have email on their phone or on another device as well. So when they're away from their desk, they can pull email. So go over there and log out. Um, Make sure you're doing it from a clean device. If you have a second machine, like an iPad or a smartphone, that's what we suggest.
Okay. So now you've triaged your email, locked it down. What do
Yeah.
you do next?
So next, we protect your money.
Hmm.
um, and immediately call your bank. Let them know that you've been breached or you've been hacked. Even if you're not sure it's going to get to your bank, just assume that because the bad actor may have enough information on you, they know your bank information, and you want to go and call your bank, set alerts, Make sure that you're saying, I'm not planning to write any checks out for this amount or et cetera. And if any money is moved, you need to escalate it quickly and let the bank take care of it. In the article, we actually have numbers and links for you to be able to hit and go to immediately.
Do people skip steps just because they're under so much pressure at the time?
Yeah, the number one thing that we tell people to do is go immediately to do a credit freeze.
Hmm.
And like a password manager, people have heard of credit freeze, but they think it's complicated. What they don't realize is it's simple. It's free and it has high impact. It makes it so that a bad actor can't get in there and open new credit cards. They can't start purchasing products. And that happened to me with the Equifax breach. I was getting alerts that somebody was buying computer equipment and sending it to New Jersey. So having that credit freeze will prevent that from happening, especially when you're not aware that this is going on in the background.
Yeah, so I've noticed that some of my credit cards have services they offer, but something like a LifeLock type of thing. Is that what you're talking about, or something else?
Yeah, something like a LifeLock. People sign up for services like LifeLock, or if they have a credit card, most of your credit card companies provide monitoring as part of the benefit. It's free. It's
Hmm.
just you didn't realize it. LifeLock is good. Everything that we're telling you to do, LifeLock does for you for a service. And again, it comes down to behavior. If you know you don't have the discipline to annually go and check these things, then you should pay the service of LifeLock or someone like them.
But there's a difference between monitoring, because I check my, because my credit cards do offer that service. I check it on a monthly basis, and I don't see anything off, and then I'm fine. So I'm kind of monitoring it, but I don't react to it. I wouldn't know what to do to react to it, I guess. But a LifeLock would maybe do that for me automatically. And you're
Yeah.
suggesting that if I'm not that disciplined, because you know me too well after almost 40 years together, I'm not as disciplined as you on these things.
Well, and not only that, but people are busy. Like you, we travel. We're in airports. We're jumping on planes. We're in a cab or Lyft or an Uber going to a meeting, and then you get the alert on your phone from credit monitoring. You may not have the time to do anything or to behave. You may be in another country. So for some people, having the service automatically take care of this for you, it's 100% worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Becomes discipline, things of that nature. Yeah, it makes sense. So the one thing that caught my interest in your kind of your intro of yourself, your journey, is this the concept of failure gap. Can you walk through that, tease that back just a little bit more?
Yeah, just a little. It's the space between knowing and doing. So it's interesting that we all have an expectation of how things are supposed to work. The reality is it doesn't always work. And we learned this years ago when we were working in storage. You believe because you're backing up, you're going to be able to recover it.
Right.
And whenever you and I are at industry conferences or we present, we always like to ask the audience, to kind of light them up and get them involved. And we hold up a smartphone. We go, how many of you have one of these? And their hands go up. And some people haven't woken up yet. So what about a laptop? And then you see everybody's hands go up. And
Yeah.
then we ask, how many of you actually back up your laptop? And half the hands usually go down. What about your phone? And then everybody's hands go down because people don't back up their phone. Why? Because they believe, and this
Mm.
is the gap, they
Hmm.
believe their phone company is backing up their phone. And we've heard this a lot. And then we usually will ask the audience, how many of you, if there's still anybody that has their hands up, how many of you have actually successfully restored from a backup?
Mm.
Every hand goes down at that point. And
Yeah.
an interesting point is that everyone has a laptop or a phone, and these are their most valuable tools to them, and they don't back them up. And they don't ever test the backup. They wait until the phone dropped into the toilet or whatever it did, and then they're in a panic mode, and I've lost my phone, and they realize they don't know how to recover the phone, even if they had a new phone.
Yeah, and it's the most valuable tools that an individual has, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does resilience look like? Just curious.
It's simple habits. It's changing your behavior. One annual reset. That's it. It's as simple as that.
So the difference between a bad afternoon and months of fallout isn't really security, it's preparation.
Yeah, that's it. And most people, they don't fail because they're careless or because they're bad people. Um, and this is one of the things that we find about people who have called me. They're like, how could I have been so stupid? I can't believe it. I'm an idiot. Or, how did people get my information? It's not really about people being bad or careless. It's about they don't know what to do next because nobody has told them.
Yeah, and that's really what this episode's about, giving people some, something practical before they need it. And that's really the basis for your article, right? And the Safe House Initiative in general.
Yeah, and exactly. And the articles are available to anybody who can read them. It's very do-it-yourself. But if you ever find yourself in that moment and you really don't know what to do, and you don't have my phone number or your phone number, don't try to figure this thing out alone. There are people out there who can help you think clearly and what to do for the next step. There's an organization called the Cyber Helpline, which exists just for that reason alone. These are professionals and they're volunteers. They're contributors to the Safe House Initiative, and we've had
Yeah,
them on our podcast.
yeah.
They're real people with real guidance. They don't have any pressure. They're not selling you anything because the services are free. And interestingly enough, they're there as volunteers 24/7 just to pick up the line and help you through whatever is is happening to you at the moment.
Yeah, combined with your article and the cyber helpline, I mean, those are great resources you can get from this Safe House Initiative .org. So let me ask you a question. Like all my guests, I always ask them if there's one thing that our audience can do today to help them become more secure and avoid all these headaches in the future. What would that one thing be, Alan?
It would be to first read the series of articles.
Hmm.
As I said, I have no ego about this. It was peer reviewed by others. And make sure that you do that reset once a year. Think of it as spring cleaning. So whether you do it in springtime, for most of us in the business, we do this during that week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
We have a week
Yeah.
to do it.
Hmm.
Back everything up. Try recovering everything. If you have a spare machine, recover to that spare machine and make sure that it works. Because if you don't know that that backup is going to work. So back up and be prepared. And then, as I said, have the link or the email or the phone number for the cyber helpline.
It's a pleasure to have you as my guest. It's a long time in coming. I appreciate your time. And on behalf of the Safe House Initiative and all of our audience, thank you for the wonderful contributions you make and this wonderful series and this podcast.
You're welcome, and it's a pleasure and an honor.
That's our episode. We greatly appreciate you joining us and hope it was a wonderful learning experience. I'm your host, Jeff Edwards, and remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more educational materials, please visit us at safehouseinitiative.org. All materials are free from tracking, promotions, memberships, or fees of any kind. Safe House Initiative is an all-volunteer organization.